The mouth of the abyss. Forget the silk, forget the sonnets, forget the way men in Venice looked at you like a prize to be won. Here, the only prize is the next breath. The year is 1543. You are standing on the edge of the world, where the limestone of Ireland meets the obsidian of the Atlantic. They call this place the graveyard of ambition. But you call it home. You are Grania Whale, Grace O'Malley. You were born to a king of the sea, but the world says you were born to be a wife. They want to trade you like a bag of grain to settle a border dispute. They want you to sit by the peat fire and wait for the men to come back with stories. But you don't want the stories. You want the scars. You're about to find out that the sea doesn't care who your father is. It doesn't care that you have a gentle soul. It only cares if you have the iron to hold the wheel when the world starts to scream. The sheared lamb. The transition is a physical wound. You are 15, standing on the docks of Clew Bay, watching the galleys prepare for Spain. Your father, the Dubdara, is checking the rigging. He looks at you and sees a daughter. He sees a dowry. He sees a proper girl with long, beautiful dark hair that catches the light. "You can't come," he says, and his voice is as final as a tombstone. Your hair would catch in the ropes. It would pull you into the deep. The sea is for men, Grania. Stay in the castle. Learn to be soft. The softness feels like a shroud. You walk into the castle kitchen. The smell of peat smoke is thick. You don't cry. O'Malleys don't waste salt. You take the butcher's knife, its edge pitted and dark. You grab your hair. You hack it off in jagged, violent handfuls. You leave the long tresses in the ash of the hearth. When you walk back to the pier, the wind hits your bare neck for the first time. It is cold. It is sharp. It is the best thing you have ever felt. You aren't a girl anymore. You are a sheared lamb, raw and ready for the slaughter, or the hunt. You walk back to the galley. Your father stares at you. The crew goes silent. You don't ask for permission this time. You step onto the deck and grab a rope. "The hair is gone," you say. "Now give me the horizon." 3 days out, the sky turns the color of a bruise. The storm isn't a gale, it's an execution. The mast is groaning, the ship is pitching toward the abyss. Your father is shouting, but the wind is louder. A wave the size of a mountain towers over the starboard side. If the ship doesn't turn now, it's over. The helmsman is frozen. You don't think. You lung for the tiller. You put your weight against the wood, the salt burning your eyes, the skin tearing from your palms. And for the first time in your life, you feel the ship obey you. Grace O'Malley didn't just sail ships. She steered history. She lived through 3 husbands, 2 queens, and a century that tried to drown Ireland in English blood. They tried to call her a pirate to make her small. They tried to call her a rebel to make her a criminal. But Grace was simply a woman who realized that the shore is a cage, and the sea is the only place where no man can tell you where to stand. She died as she lived, with the sound of the Atlantic in her ears, and the knowledge that while she may not have saved Ireland, she never, ever let them take her soul. The Lioness of Rockfleet. From captain to chieftain. The transition isn't a ceremony, it's a baptism of fire and blood. You are no longer just a sailor, you are a mother, a widow, and a warlord. You've moved from the deck of your father's ship to the high stone walls of Rockfleet Castle. The air here smells of gunpowder, roasted venison, and the iron scent of the incoming tide. You've learned that in Ireland, power isn't given, it's seized and held with a closed fist. You lead a fleet of 20 galleys and 200 men who don't follow you because of your name, but because you are the most dangerous person on the water. The year is 1567. You are below deck on your flagship, the White Horse. You are in labour with your son, Tibbot Nilong, Tibbot of the ships. The air is stifling, thick with the smell of sweat and tallow candles. Outside, the world is screaming. A Turkish corsair has intercepted your fleet. You hear the splintering of wood, the clatter of grappling hooks, and the war cries of men who think a woman in labour is a vulnerability. Your captain stumbles into the cabin, his face pale. "They're boarding, Grania! We're losing the deck!" You don't stay in the blankets. You wrap your newborn son in a rough wool mantle and tuck him into a basket. You grab your blunderbuss, your legs shaking, your body still screaming from the birth. You walk onto the deck. The sun is blinding. The Turkish pirates see a woman, blood-stained and pale, and they pause for a heartbeat, long enough for you to level your weapon. "May you be 7 times worse off this time next year," you roar, the traditional O'Malley curse. You fire. You lead the countercharge, your blunderbuss swinging like a club. By the time the sun sets, the Turkish ship is a burning wreck, and your deck is slick with the blood of men who underestimated you. You stand at the prow, holding your son against your chest, looking out at the jagged coast of Mayo. You realize that you have become something the English crown fears more than any rebellion. You are a woman who can give life and take it in the same hour. But as you look toward the horizon, you see a new kind of sail, not the triangular sails of the Turks, but the square, heavy canvas of the English navy. The wolf has tasted blood, but the hunters are finally closing in. The wolf at the door. From legend to outlaw. The transition feels like the walls of the world are closing in. The year is 1584. The English Tudor conquest is no longer a distant threat. It is a starving wolf at your throat. Sir Richard Bingham, the governor of Connaught, has arrived. He doesn't see a chieftain. He sees a female rebel whose existence is an insult to the crown. The air no longer smells of victory. It smells of scorched earth, cold iron, and the metallic tang of betrayal. You watch from the cliffs as your castles, the stone anchors of your power, are seized. Your galleys are impounded. The English flags, a jarring red and white, flutter over the battlements where your own colours used to fly. Bingham takes everything that isn't nailed down, and then he takes your blood. He captures your sons. He hangs your brother-in-law. You find yourself hiding in the hills of Mayo, sleeping on damp heather, wrapped in a threadbare mantle. You are over 50 years old. Your body aches from decades of salt and steel. You are impoverished, your fleet is gone, and a price is on your head. Your allies whisper of surrender. They tell you to crawl to Bingham and beg for a pension. But you look at the sea, the only thing they haven't been able to fence in, and you realize that a wolf doesn't beg, it bites. You decide on a move so audacious it borders on madness. You realize that to beat the governor, you must go over his head. You don't send a spy, you send a letter. You write to Queen Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen in her gilded palace, woman to woman. You aren't asking for mercy, you are asking for a parley. You are an O'Malley, and you will not be hunted by a mid-level bureaucrat like Bingham. If you are to be judged, you will be judged by the only other woman in the world who understands the weight of a crown. You board a small, unremarkable merchant vessel, disguised as a common traveller. As you sail away from Ireland toward the heart of the English Empire, you see Bingham's patrol ships in the distance. You are walking into the lion's den with nothing but your wit and a language they don't think a barbarian can speak. You are headed for London, a city of stone and secrets, to face the woman who has spent her life trying to destroy yours. 2 queens are about to meet, and only one of them has ever seen a storm from the deck of a ship. The 2 queens, from barbarian to peer. The transition is a sensory collision. The year is 1593. You walk through the halls of Greenwich Palace, and the air is heavy with the cloying scent of rosewater, beeswax, and the metallic sweat of nervous courtiers. The ground beneath your feet is no longer shifting timber or jagged limestone. It is polished, unforgiving marble. You are 63 years old. You are dressed in your finest Irish robes, but to the English court you are a curiosity, a pirate queen from the edge of the world. You feel their eyes, mocking, curious, and fearful. You don't walk like a petitioner. You walk like a woman who has survived 100 storms and has no intention of drowning in a room full of silk. The doors open. Elizabeth I sits on her throne, a mountain of white lace, pearls, and red hair. She is the Virgin Queen, the master of an empire. You are the Sea Queen, the master of the waves. The court expects you to bow. You refuse. You stand tall, looking her in the eye, because one queen does not bow to another. When you speak, you don't use the English of the commoners or the Irish of the clans. You speak in Latin, the language of scholars and popes. You realize in the quiet between your sentences that Elizabeth is not your enemy. She is your mirror. She is an aging woman surrounded by men who want her power, just like you. You negotiate. You don't beg for mercy. You demand justice. You lay out the crimes of Richard Bingham. You speak of your sons' lives as a debt the crown owes you. Elizabeth watches you. She sees the scars on your hands and the salt in your eyes. She sees a woman who has done what she herself could never do. She has lived a life of absolute physical freedom. In that moment, the pirate and the queen disappear. There are only two survivors left in the room. You leave London with a royal parchment, signed in the Queen's own hand, granting you the right to maintenance and the release of your sons. You have won the greatest gamble of your life. But as you sail back toward the cliffs of Mayo, you look at the paper in your hand. You realize that a queen's favor is as fickle as the wind. The war isn't over. It has just changed shape. You are going home to a country that is being devoured, but you are going home as the only woman who ever looked the English Empire in the eye and made it blink. The horizon is still yours, and as long as the Atlantic roars, Grace O'Malley will never be a ghost. The Sea Queen's legacy. Grace O'Malley didn't just sail ships, she steered history. She lived through 3 husbands, 2 queens, and a century that tried to drown Ireland in English blood. They tried to call her a pirate to make her small. They tried to call her a rebel to make her a criminal. But Grace was simply a woman who realized that the shore is a cage, and the sea is the only place where no man can tell you where to stand. She died as she lived, with the sound of the Atlantic in her ears, and the knowledge that while she may not have saved the world, she never, ever let them take her soul. If you felt the salt on your skin and the fire in her spirit, don't let her story sink back into the depths. History is full of women who refused the cage, who learned to bite back, and who left their blood on the floor so we could find our way out of the dark. Subscribe to the page as we continue to exhume the lives of the dark heroines. Next time, we move from the storm-lashed cliffs of Ireland to the golden, blood-soaked dust of the Byzantine Empire. We're meeting the woman who started as an outcast in the bear pits of the circus and ended as the most feared empress in history. She didn't just survive the streets of Constantinople, she rebuilt them in her own image. Next time, Theodora, the Empress of the Shadows. Stay dangerous, stay loud, and never let them hold the pen.